door off to that police vehicle, and they're continuing to loot multiple stores here in the downtown corridor, right at 6th and Pine near Westlake Center. And apparently many are trying to cause as much destruction as possible. And we're going to, where is he, Bill?
As so many people tried to gather earlier to peacefully show their outrage over George Floyd's death. His family had said that seeing these types of riots would be something that would devastate Floyd. And talking about some of the looting and riots in Minneapolis, the family and his girlfriend said that they were heartbroken over this. So what often happens in some of these demonstrations is that there is a peaceful group who have a message, and then there are people.
Lindsay, we are looking at that car. We are facing east, so we are at 5th and Pine. And it's not just Nordstrom that's being looted. If my photographer can pan over to the Old Navy, you can see there, their window is down. Mostly what's happening here is people are yelling at the police officers who formed a phalanx here on Pine at on Fifth Avenue, actually, at Pine. And there's other destruction at other buildings, but nothing quite like you see at Old Navy. There's a lot of graffiti that's been written on buildings and that sort of thing. And, looting, yes, I realize there's looting at Old Navy, but there's also there's signs with graffiti and that sort of thing that people have put on buildings. And, of course, you do see what I think it looks very much like a police car to me that is on fire right in the area that usually buses come and drop off passengers. Having been one of the bus riders myself, I've been driven by that many times. And so nothing happening on this side except if we go past. Well, there are a lot of curse words here on the building, so we probably can't show you everything that we're seeing. And see, you may have just seen that firecracker that came over there, and that seemed to excite the fire a little bit more that's burning that vehicle. I don't know that that's the case, but it didn't seem to cause the officers to flinch very much. So as you were saying, both Dee Dee and you, Lindsay, what started out as a peaceful protest, in fact, we talked to people who said they did not want this kind of destruction because they said they don't want to tear down what everybody has built up. They want to build up and make life better for everyone, and they don't believe that this is the way to do it. But again, there are some people who don't share that view. That's obvious with what we're seeing here. They say that if you don't do this, if you don't cause chaos, if you don't cause destruction, that no one hears the message. And so we'll see in the next few days whether that message is being heard. I'll tell you the one message that is not being heard here, and that is that there is a curfew, and that at 5 o'clock this afternoon, which was a little more than a half hour ago, they were to disperse downtown. Maybe they've gotten the message and they are ignoring it. No one is doing anything to make them move, at least not here, at least not now. The police have taken their moments when they have found them to disperse the crowd. And as you saw us a few minutes ago, we were caught in the middle of that. But again, here on the west side of Nordstrom, it's relatively peaceful. The police are patrolling the Old Navy where there was looting and just letting the vehicle burn, as you see it burning there and has been burning for some time. And just letting the vehicle burn, and that is a flashbang. As I say, the police are taking their moments when they find them to disperse the crowd. I would not be surprised that will happen over here. And of course, even at this distance, and I'm a block away, it is causing me some distress as well, just trying to talk. So what they are using does force you to move back, whether you stay moved back or not.
And what we understand right now is that all ferry service has been suspended. We also know that about 26 minutes ago, troopers were saying they were addressing the situation that had been on the freeway with some protesters there. They said that westbound I-9 was being diverted at that point to southbound I-5, and that northbound I-5 was being diverted to eastbound 90. A lot of diversions away from this area. We are checking right now to see if traffic has returned to some normalcy on I-5. But if you are heading in this area, you want to probably think of different routes to take to avoid I-5 and certainly to avoid downtown Seattle. Just about an hour, 42 minutes ago, Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan announced and put into effect a curfew. As you can see, a Seattle police officer walking away from that chaos there, put a curfew into effect of 5 o'clock, telling people to disperse and to stay home, basically, to get away from this chaos. Instead, what we have seen is an escalation. People, in addition to some of those cars being on fire, going back to those cars, trying to set them on fire once again, and then breaking more windows, and then from that point, looting some of those stores. So over the past 2 hours, this has only escalated. And in some cases, as we saw outside the Nordstrom, into violence when a man was trying to prevent people from going in to loot, taking different items from Nordstrom and then throwing them out to the crowd. A man tried to stop that, and then a fight broke out. Both of these pictures that you are seeing on your screen right now are live pictures of what is unfolding in downtown Seattle right now. Originally, the gatherings of protesters, that was supposed to be to share outrage over the death of George Floyd. It was supposed to be peaceful. It was supposed to be a way to peacefully get their message across and stay calm, as George Floyd's family had asked for. Instead, what you are seeing is mayhem, as people have chosen to vandalize, to fight each other, to loot stores. As sometimes happens in these cases, you have a large amount of people who want to be peaceful, and then you have groups of people who decide to become or to show that they are anarchists, and they are basically in several blocks of Seattle here causing chaos. I'm hearing
Lindsay?
Deborah is talking to us right now. Let's check in with Deborah Horn.
Yes,
Deborah,
sorry.
what can you tell us?
Yes, I'm trying to let you know that we see a police officer being escorted from the scene. It does appear that that officer is injured. My photographer, John Jussero, was the one who told me, because, of course, he could see it better than I from his vantage point with the camera. And I don't know, we don't know how many officers have been injured, but we think we saw another one as well. Is that right, John? So at least two whom we have seen. Of course, we're just on one side of all of this, so we don't know what's happening on each side. But it's just that things are changing so quickly. Just as you saw, the flashbangs were set off over there, and then a couple of minutes later we saw an officer who seemed to be hurt, and then we saw him being escorted away. He was walking away, and so he wasn't injured so badly that he had to be taken out on his with help. But it's just that the volatility, the tension that we're feeling down here, even as we stand here with what seems to be not much going on. I dare say that not long from now, just a guess, that they will be setting off flashbangs in our direction as well. So you may see us on the move in some fashion, just as you can hear that flashbang, which again is about a block east of us. We couldn't see it that time, but we could certainly hear it.
And you can hear them chanting, "Hands up, don't shoot," which is a refrain that we have heard in protests all across the country as people have shared their outrage over the death of George Floyd in Minneapolis. We are seeing people moving here in what appear to be some sort of costumes downtown. And then in the bottom right of your screen, you're seeing Seattle police officers on the move as they are trying their best to restore some order, or at least prevent more damage. It is 5:46 right now, and in about 14 minutes, we are expecting to hear from Seattle Mayor Jenny Durkan, who instituted an emergency curfew of 5 p.m. in an attempt to slow and dissipate these crowds downtown that have basically engaged in chaos here for the past 45 minutes to an hour. We saw protesters marching on the interstate and stopping traffic there. We are working to get you an update on the situation on I-5, but this is the situation in downtown, basically around the Westlake and Pacific Place area, around 5th and 4th 6th, 5th, and 4th Avenues. This is some video from earlier tonight when some of those vehicles were raging with fire, and those officers were keeping people back so Seattle firefighters could safely go in and put out those flames. We had seen Seattle Fire tweeting that they would respond only to those fires when they deemed it was safe for them. That is how chaotic the situation has been. And so you can see these Seattle police officers, bike cops, holding the line there, and then a Seattle fire truck parked as those firefighters work to put out those flames. But since that point, we have seen those cars reignited by people throwing incendiary devices at them, and another police cruiser covered with graffiti and people ripping it apart. You can see the Verizon store there with graffiti all over its windows. And this is a live picture here of the flames that appear to continue on this vehicle. You can see that it is basically a carcass of the vehicle right now, and that grill suggests that it was a Seattle police cruiser at one point. Now it is a smoldering mess downtown, with other cruisers have also suffered the same type of damage. SPD tells us several patrol cars were set on fire. And you hear those chants behind us continuing, hands up, don't shoot. Now, in some of these cases, protesters, again, have been peaceful in parts of the city, standing